Thanks for joining our first installment of our new Flow Live web series. I'm Samantha Brown, Senior Director of Customer Marketing and Brand at xMatters. And now for our webinar, Sun Life, 8 Best Practices in Evolving Mass Communications in 2020 and Beyond. I'd like to introduce you to our speaker, Samantha Lara. She is a Crisis Management Associate at Sun Life. She's been instrumental in the implementation and socialization of xMatters at Sun Life globally. She's sometimes referred to as the Grandmaster Wizard of the Sun Life notification system. Samantha has over 3 years of experience in the field of crisis management, and outside of work, she's a dedicated personal disaster volunteer for the Canadian Red Cross. Take it away, Samantha.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today to discuss 8 best practices in evolving mass communications. With the time that we have today, I will be taking a quick overview of Sun Life, our program, and diving into application security, testing, and awareness and training practices today. At the end of the presentation, you will receive my best practices, so sit back, enjoy your coffee, and let me tell you about our journey. Next slide. Who are we? Sun Life is the leading international financial service providing insurance, wealth, and asset management solutions to individuals and corporate clients across markets worldwide. We have approximately 30,000 employees and another 89,000 advisors worldwide. My department, Global Crisis Management Program, and I manage the business continuity instance of xMatters, which is known internally as Sun Life Notification System, or SLNS for short. We use xMatters for real crisis and business continuity events to communicate with our employees and to also assemble our crisis management and business continuity teams globally. Next slide. We have 140 trained agents globally who use the system for their areas. Next slide. So before we begin, I have a polling question for the audience. Does your company currently have a mass notification system? We'll give you the next 30 seconds to answer that, and then we'll review at the end of this section. Let me take us back to 2018. June 30th, 2018 was our official decommission date for our old mass notification tool. In between June and October, my team and I had plans on doing system testing, conducting training, and further developing the system all in anticipation of our Canada-wide call tree testing later that year. As we know, nothing ever goes to plan. August 7th arrives, and downtown Toronto and the surrounding GTA were receiving weather alerts from Environment Canada, letting us know that we should be expecting severe precipitation to the downtown core. And boy, they weren't kidding. Next slide. These were just some of the local headlines and pictures shared across social media. Tons of flooding across the downtown core, which left cars, buses, and people stranded, unable to make their regular commutes home. And funny enough, this flooding event in Toronto actually made Environment Canada's top 10 weather events for Canada. That's how severe it was. So while the majority of the downtown core looked like an extension of Lake Ontario, this is what Mother Nature decided to bless us with at our Toronto One York building. Next slide. On your screen is our wonderful indoor pool located on parking level 4 for your convenience. Next slide. And a beautiful indoor waterfall. All of these wonderful additions came just a few days before our building turned 1. Next slide. So the time is now 4:45 a.m. on August 8th. The Canada Region Crisis Management Team has officially declared alternate site recovery on our Toronto One York building. Following this decision, a communication at 5:30 went out to employees based out of Toronto One York, making them aware that the building was closed. At 6:35, the decision was made to communicate more broadly to employees located in Canada. Being a global company, we have lots of travelers, locally and out of province, which means we have people coming in from any of our other offices. So it was absolutely imperative to us to communicate on a much broader scale to make sure that we were accounting for as many employees and travelers as possible. Since my boss started 10 years ago, this was our first ever full alternate site recovery for one of our major Canadian offices. Displayed on your screen are actually 3 of the first communications that we sent out for the event. Next slide. So what did we learn from this event that brought about change to our program? We were in the final phase of implementing our tool internally and had not completed all of our awareness activities, which unfortunately resulted in many of our employees not having our new contact information programmed into their devices, along with not fully understanding how to respond to our new text message functionality. So while our employees received our communications and knew to stay home, some of them were a bit skeptical with all the phishing tests we put them through. Ultimately, in order to change our critical success factor of employees responding to our communications, we needed to increase our internal awareness of what our new tool does. And coincidentally enough, when implementing our first mass notification tool in 2013, our first real event was also a flood. Next slide. So before we jump into the best practices, let's just quickly review the results from the poll. Belinda? Wow, that's awesome. So it looks like 94% of you have mass notification systems at your company. That's awesome to hear. Okay. Next slide. I've created 8 best practices that will help assist you in implementing a mass notification system at your company. But with the interest of time, I will only be diving in on application security, testing, and awareness and training practices today. Next slide. Application security. Next slide. Establishing your application security is the most important, as it ultimately determines who can communicate to your CEO. Understanding how your organization communicates will help build your application security. Understanding your existing organization structure is one way of putting limitations on users with communicating outside of their direct reporting leader. Next slide. Adding additional permission roles, such as country and templates, will create unique permissions for matrixed organizations. Having multiple permission roles is called permission layering, and when thought through carefully, can allow communication segregation between business groups operating across multiple countries. Due to our very matrix organization, it was especially important for us to create some divide between business groups operating in multiple countries and limiting their ability to communicate outside of this. So working through our use cases, we were able to better align our crisis communications to develop flexible security for the individuals using the tool. Another very important call out from an application security perspective is actually deciding who should be the one to communicate to your CEO. Carefully thinking through how many admins you want the system to have will ultimately drive the other best practices. For Sun Life, there are 2 admins for the business continuity instance. And while the setup we currently have is working great, you should certainly look across your organization and make sure you are moving forward in the best way to support your program. Another polling question for my audience. How many system administrators does your company have for your mass notification system? Take the next 30 seconds to answer, and we will review. Can we see the results? Thank you. Okay, interesting. I'm really curious to actually understand more as to how some of your companies have everything set up from an admin standpoint. That'll be an interesting conversation to get going on Slack. So testing. So, next slide. So why test? The system is ever changing, which requires frequent testing of templates, devices, communication groups, and response options. Testing the system itself is super important because you want to make sure that the user experience is still a great and easy one. At Sun Life, we've implemented the Kevin test, where I make my system changes, develop a job aid document if necessary, and pass everything along to my boss, Kevin, to get him to go through everything and see if he can maybe break anything. While you won't see the Kevin test on the best practice list, I highly recommend having individuals who are not the subject matter expert on the tool review which system changes you have made. This allows admins to think from a new user perspective and dive deeper into how others are utilizing the tool. Next slide. Testing the overall system and user for Sun Life is completed when we run our Canada-wide call tree test, which happen once a year. Our key objective for culture testing is to provide confidence that the recovery strategies and plans will support the business in the event of a disruption. On the screen are some of our results from the last few years of our culture testing. Over the last few years, we've changed the way we've conducted testing, ranging from a difference in times, response options, and even communication groups. From our October 2018 test itself, this was only our second time using xMatters for a Canada-wide test, and it was clear after reviewing our results that there was something missing from an employee awareness perspective, in addition to gaps in employee counts when communicating at the executive level due to our very matrix organization. From October until March, we ended up changing the way call trees were run to now everyone located in Canada, which allowed us to close off that executive level gap. And in addition to this, we ended up developing an employee awareness video, which demonstrated why people or employees would be receiving communications from us and also showed them how to respond to communications. This video helped tremendously with our September 2019 call tree. The results speak for itself, having the awareness circulating internally, promoted what the tool does and how to respond to it. So as we can see with our results from our most recent call tree test this April, there's been just a slight decrease in the number of no responses. The biggest change to note are actually our response options. We changed everything to simply confirm or deny if we were reaching the correct employee. So another polling question for my audience: how often is your mass notification system used for company-wide testing? So again, we'll give you 30 seconds to go through this, and then we'll review results. Oh, wow. This is great. Every one of these answers is selected from someone. I would be really interested to understand some of the use cases for monthly testing. If that conversation can get going on Slack, that would be really cool. Awareness and training. Developing a centralized place for all of your information related to your mass notification system will be helpful when it needs to get shared across your entire company. Including this information in your internal intranet is a great centralized place for everyone to access it. Our internal intranet site is the central spot to access details on Sun Life notification system, and some of the following information that we have available to employees are what SLNS is and why we use it, a video of how to respond to a communication, frequently asked questions, and QR codes for SLNS country-specific contact details. And without further ado, here is the SLNS employee awareness video. Please note there is no sound for the video, it is purely visual. Okay. Next slide. So just to quickly recap my 8 best practices to you, there's program initiation and management, application security, which we touched on, message content, communication groups, templates, testing, which we discussed, maintenance, and awareness and training. But fear not, don't need to jot any of this down because after this presentation, you'll be receiving the interactive handout as a takeaway. Thank you everyone for joining today and taking time to listen to me discuss my 8 best practices in mass communication.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Great information. I wanted to remind everyone again about the Slack channel. We've talked about it a lot on this session. We're really hoping that you can engage through the channel. Samantha will be available from Sun Life to answer any questions on the Meet the Speaker channel for the next 30 minutes or so. We also have experts that are available online to answer any technical or product-related questions in the Ask the Expert channel. If you have a question or topic not already covered, feel free to also add it in Slack. We hope you enjoyed the first web episode of our Flow Live series. We're always open to hearing your thoughts and getting your feedback. Just wanted to let everyone know about what's happening in May. We have 3 sessions on May 12th with Liat Palace from Amdocs, Allison Masari, a guest keynote, and Leanne Taylor and Kyla Shelley from Wires. We also have 3 important workshops you can attend: XMatters Overview and Admin Review on May 18th, May 20th, XMatters Groups and Teams, and May 21st, Workflows. Thank you again, Samantha, for sharing your information today. We really appreciate you spending the time with the audience. That's all for the webinar today. We hope you enjoyed it. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.